Welcome back to Freeze Automotive. Today we're going to continue on our apprenticeship series by showing you guys how to do an oil change. And before you click away, if you're an apprentice and you're like, oh, I don't know how to do an oil change, that's awesome. But I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do an oil change from a dealership perspective. So the things you need to be looking for, what you should be checking, different things you can do, because as an apprentice, to be more valuable, you have to be good at finding work, selling work, and not necessarily upselling stuff that needs to be sold, but keeping track and making recommendations and telling things customers need to keep an eye on. So I'm going to go over all that today because it's not just as easy as draining and filling the oil, changing the oil filter, so on and so forth. There's a lot of stuff you have to check with it. So I'm going to get this Explorer in the air and then we're going to start going over some stuff. So the first thing I did, you guys can see there, I pulled the car forward, I checked the windshield wiper blades, I turned the lights on, I did a light check, checked all my running lights, my turn signals, brights, fog lights that the vehicle has. And now that we've popped the hood, there's a couple things we're going to look for. We're going to check the engine air filter, check the cleanliness level of that. We're going to check brake fluid levels. We're going to top up the washer fluid, which is over here. And we're also going to check the coolant levels. These are all things that you should be checking. It should be quick. This should take you like 30 seconds to do. So I'm quickly going to do that. So first thing I noticed right away, let me grab it here. I haven't touched anything yet, but if you look right there, that clasp is off on the air filter housing. That should be up, so somebody's probably been in here, and this has probably been checked. Let's see if I can see it. Yeah, so someone's replaced that air filter, so that's good. So, oh, it doesn't sit in here right, so I'm gonna get this sitting correctly. Let me quickly do that. And that's now clipped on. We're gonna shine a light in the brake fluid reservoir. We can see it's here, so that's within max. Here's our oil fill here, so we're gonna wipe that cap off, and we're just gonna do that so it drains oil faster. And then we're also going to check our coolant, shine the light in there, and you can see we're at the range fill, so we're good. So that's all of our pre-checks done down here. Now I'm going to get it in the air and we'll pull a skid plate and start draining the oil. Okay, so on your way up, you're going to stop halfway. You're going to check the tread life of your tires. You're going to verify the rotation of the tires is correct, front to back, left to right. You're going to look at the shock here. You're going to check for leaks out of this spot here, right at the seal. You can see these boots come off. Nothing you can really do about that. And then you're going to shake the tire left to right. You're going to feel for play. You're going to give it a tug up top, feel for play. You're also going to do the same thing on the bottom, feel for play. So this is actually all good. I checked the other side already. A little bit of rack play. If you feel an inner tie rod, a lot of the time it is rack play if it's very minor, but it's different manufacturer to manufacturer. So now we've checked the tread on these. So this guy here, that looks to be about 10-30 seconds. And then we got one on the back. It's about 10-30 seconds as well. If you have, say, 8 in the front, 10 in the back, then you would be able to recommend a tire rotation. All 4 wheels come off, flip them around. So while we're also here, take a light, shine it in there, take a look at your brakes, see how much pad life you have left. But you also have to check it from the inside. Sometimes on the brakes, the caliper pins will get stuck and they'll seize, they'll get moisture in there and then they'll freeze up. And then the inside pad wears out at a different rate than the outside pad. So make sure when you're checking your brakes, you check inside and outside. You get 2 different measurements. Bonus points if you take the wheels off if you're doing a winter tire swap, which at this time of year in Manitoba, we're doing a lot of that. So I'm gonna keep going up and we'll keep going over some stuff we have to check. Come into the back of the vehicle. You got some sway bar links you can check right here. Give those a tug. You have a bushing in your shock to check your axle boots, make sure those aren't torn. Also follow the sway bar to their bushings. Make sure those aren't torn out. This car sees a lot of gravel. So these are starting to wear, nothing major. Something to keep an eye on. Also got bushings here you gotta check. One on right there, one right here. This is actually for a toe adjustment on your vehicle. If these start to wear, your tires will start to wear funny, and then you often can feel them. This one actually, if you feel, you can tell that it was underinflated for a bit, just because the mill's wearing differently. On the Ford Explorer, you've got a bushing block up top right there. And then just a whole bunch of stuff to check. Rear diff. So I'm gonna grab the camera here. You got ooh, that blade is bright. You got an axle seal right there. You gotta check both sides, make sure there's no leaks. And even pinion seal right there. Make sure there's no leaks. Ooh. Grab your drive shaft. Let's see if the light adjusted yet. Check your U-joints on your drive shaft. This one's hard to get to because of that. But that's the back taken care of. Now we can get to the front. So ideally in a perfect world, your oil will be draining while you're doing this. Because I'm filming, I'm not draining it. But coming to the front, like I said, check your brake pad on the inside. Check axle boots, same as the rear. Check axle seals. Check your sway bar links. tie rods, give them a shake, just make sure. Lower ball joint. Same with the back side, or the other side, sorry. Then take a look for oil leaks. Normally, so if you have something from here, likely rear main, can't really see anything, oil pan isn't leaking. I'm gonna look up here, check the front cover, check my crank seal, look at the condition of my belt. Everything looks good. So there's actually not a lot wrong with this. So there is one thing. I'll turn the camera so you can see. Right here, you can see this has come off. Let me zoom in there. So this is a strap that holds that shield on. So this customer probably has a little bit of rattling, given that this one here is broken. And then one further down here, right there, is also broken. So this shield, they likely have a rattling that they hear while driving. They probably don't know what it is, so we're going to mention that. One way you can fix this is you can grab a worm gear and you can just throw it on there. And a worm gear clamp will keep that tight. That'll stop that buzzing from happening, and that'll take care of that. So that is one thing I'm going to recommend. And let's get on with the oil change here. So this is very important. When you take the oil filter off these guys, you want to make sure that there's no O-ring left on here. The O-ring stays with the filter. What can happen is the O-ring can stick up there, and then if you put a second oil filter on it, it's called double gasket, and then it'll leak oil. And obviously if you're leaking oil, that's bad. Customers don't want to leak oil, that's why they brought it to you. So when you are taking that filter off, make sure that O-ring is there, or is not there, and it came off with the filter. When putting these on, every dealership is different. Bottom the filter out, and then give it, a good turn with your hand. You don't have to crank them on there. They just have to be tight enough that they seal, and the next guy can get them off. Depending on the dealership that you're working at, some will want you to pre-fill it, some don't want you to pre-fill it. So whatever you guys are being trained to do at your work, please do that. If you're gonna pre-fill it, make sure that everyone else is pre-filling. If you're not gonna pre-fill it, make sure everyone else isn't pre-filling it, just to keep it the same. And then while you're up here, wipe oil off, especially the exhaust up here, because that will cause a burning smell. Again, they don't want anything like that. They just want it to work, given that they came to you for an oil change. So while the oil is draining, do your inspection. I didn't do that. I'm gonna drain it right away. And submit it to parts as fast as you can. So that way, as you're finishing up your oil change, parts can be quoting everything out. And ideally how it works is you'll finish the oil change, you'll go to your advisor, give the work order, give the keys, you'll have submitted your story on the computer if that's how your system operates. And hopefully by that time, parts has quoted everything out, and you've put your labor times in, and you've found the times for everything, and you've quoted everything on separate lines. You've marked what's warranty, what's not warranty. And that way the advisor can take it, they can look at it, they mean, okay, oil change is done. And sometimes even before you get it off the hoist, they can get approval for more work. So if you found brakes or anything like that, suspension, alignment needed, stuff like that, ideally in that time frame, parts will have it quoted out, and then they can go give it to the customer. Usually if you're an apprentice doing quick turnover oil changes, you're not gonna be doing the work, so you can kick it out anyways. But once you're a tech, it's very beneficial to do that, as often you'll get a yes or a no for some of the things you're doing or wanting to do before you're even done the oil change. That way the car stays on the hoist, you could quickly get into the next thing, such as say a tie rod and rear brakes for whatever reason, right? So ideally while you're draining the oil, you'll get this inspection off to parts. The trick is to find the fastest way to kind of do everything all at once. So while you're waiting for the oil drain, be quoting out stuff, so on and so forth. You'll figure out a system that's good for you. But the key, especially as an apprentice, is you want to get the oil changes in and out as fast as you can, but also be good inspections, thorough, and you can get as much information to the customer as possible about their vehicle. So depending on the make and the model of the car, you're going to want to change the gasket out on the drain plug. In this case, it's a Ford. Fords have a rubber gasket. It's reusable, so I don't have to change it. This will be going right back in. Once this oil is done draining, I'll get this plug back in and I will tighten it to spec. That's a very important thing to do, especially if you haven't worked on the car before. There's very specific torque that these drain plugs need to be. Once you've done a whole bunch, or you work for a brand where you're doing the same thing every day, you can kind of get a feel for it. You know where it's how tight it needs to be, where it's not gonna leak. So once you figure that out, put the drain plug back in, and then we're gonna go up and we're gonna start filling up the oil. This is a very important step I forgot to mention. Before you drain the oil and take the oil filter off, make sure you have an oil filter and the correct oil on hand. So you can see right here, I have my funnel in here, stops the mess from being made. That's very important. You don't want to mess up or get oil all over their engine bay. It can smoke, it can cause a stink that they might come back and complain about. So just overall, we're trying to avoid that. So I'm using a funnel. This car takes 5.7 liters of 5W30. As per the cap, 530. So I'm going to fill it up, and then I'm going to start the engine, run it, and then I'm going to double check it on the dipstick to make sure we have the correct level. So before we start the vehicle, a couple things we got to do. We got to make sure the dipstick's all the way down and blocking that hole, and we got to take the funnel out, put the oil cap on. When you're taking the funnel out, reach down with paper towel, pull it up and wipe. Pull it out as one, no drips. And then I like to wipe off that oil cap so they can tell we've been in there. And this step is very, very important, especially for nicer vehicles. Take a look at your hands. Wipe them off. Do not get into a customer's vehicle with greasy hands. You'll leave fingerprints on the door jamb, the hood, and we're trying to avoid all of that. You want to keep it as clean as possible. This isn't your vehicle, it's someone else's, so we have to respect it and take care of it. So, now that my hands are clean, I'm going to go start it up with the dipstick in and the oil cap on, so a check engine light doesn't get thrown. And then I'm going to shut it off after it runs for 30 seconds, and I'm going to check the level on the dipstick. So I'm going to go do that now. When getting in and out of a vehicle, especially on a 2-post hoist, please take extra caution to make sure you're not banging your doors against the hoist. It's really rude to give a customer a car back with a dent on the door. Another thing that lots of techs will do is they'll put foam on their hoist, so when the door does open, if it does accidentally hit it, it hits the foam, not the door. Another thing you can do is you put your hand down. That's what I do, so if it does hit something, it hits my hand and then the hoist, and that way we make sure we don't wreck the paint or damage anything on the door. So take your dipstick out, wipe it all the way down. You don't want any oil on it, and put your dipstick back in. All the way down, pull it out, and we're going to check our reading. So I don't know if you can see that, but that top dot is full. That's right where we're sitting, even after it's running. So our oil level is good. So put the dipstick back down, sorry. Lift up your hood. I'm using a cloth to not have fingerprints there. Bring the hood down to about here, depending on the hood. Some of you have to push down, some of you don't. Just drop it. Make sure it's closed. Double check, make sure you didn't leave any fingerprints on there. Come around to the door over here. Let me get you off the tripod. Make sure this is a big one. You don't have fingerprints right here on that part of the door, because that's where you open and close it from. Make sure you don't have any fingerprints anywhere else. And this is a bonus tip for you guys, if you're being extra careful. If you have oily and dirty boots and you drag your boot here or right here on this door panel, you'll leave a scuff mark. Not a scuff mark, just dirt. Make sure that's all wiped up, because you don't want to be leaving marks like that. Not your vehicle, take care of it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys learned something from that. I hope that helps you improve as apprentices trying to move up in the trade. Hopefully you guys can implement some of that stuff to get better and more efficient at oil changes, or if you weren't too sure how to do them on like a professional level, what to look for. Hopefully that helped you out. Hopefully some of you guys make it to journeyman in the trade, and maybe there's always a chance that you'll end up working for me. Until then, or until the next video, thanks guys for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys next time.